The Aeneid, Vergil, Book 6. So grieving and in tears he gave the ship her head before the wind, drawing towards land at the Euboean settlement of Cumae. Ships came about, prows pointing seaward, anchors biting to hold them fast, and rounded sterns indented all the water's edge. The men debarked in groups, eager to go ashore upon Hesperia. Some struck seeds of fire out of the veins of flint, and some explored the Virgin's woods, layers of wild things for fuel, pointing out to what streams they found. Aeneas, in duty bound, went inland to the heights where overshadowing Apollo dwells, and nearby, in a place apart, a dark, enormous cave, the Sibyl feared by men. In her, the Delian god of prophecy inspires uncanny powers of mind and soul, disclosing things to come. Here, Trojan captains walked to Diana of the Crossroads wood and entered under roofs of gold. They said that Daedalus, when he fled the realms of Minos, dared to entrust himself to stroking winds and to the air of heaven, unheard of paths on which he swam away to the cold north. At length, to touch down on that very height of the Chaldeans, here on earth again, he dedicated to you Phobos Apollo, the twin sweeps of his wings. Here he laid out at spacious temple in the entrance way, and Trogius' death appeared. Then Cecrop's children ordered to pay in recompense each year the living flesh of 7 sons. The urn from which the lots were drawn stood modeled there, and facing it upon the opposite door, the land of Crete emerging from the sea. Here the brutish act appeared, Fascife being covered by the bull in the cow's place. Then her mixed breed, her child of double form, the Minotaur, get of unholy lust. Here too that puzzle of the house of Minos, the maze none could untangle until touched by a great love shown by a royal girl. He, Daedalus himself, unraveled all the baffling turns and dread ends in the dark, guiding the blind way back by a skin unwound. In that high sepulchre you too would have had your great pat. Icarus had grief aloud. Twice your father had tried to shade your fall in gold, but twice his hands dropped. Here the Trojans would have passed on and gazed and read it all, had not Achates, whom they had sent ahead, returned now with the priestess of Apollo and of Diana, goddess of the crossroads, Diphobe the Sibyl, Glaucus' daughter. Thus she addressed the king: the hour demands no lagging oversight like these. Instead, you should make offering of 7 young bulls from an ungilded herd, and 7 again well chosen ewes. With these words for Aeneas, orders his men were quick to act upon. The priestess called them on her lofty shrine, the cliff's flank in a honeycomb, cut out in a cavern perforated 100 times, having 100 mouths, with rushing voices carrying the responses of the Sibyl. Here, as the men approached the entrance way, the Sibyl cried out, "Now is the time to ask your destinies." And the god, look there, the god, and as she spoke, neither her face nor hue went untransformed, nor did her hair stay neatly bound. Her breast heaved, her will heart grew large with passion, taller to their eyes, and sounded now no longer like a mortal, since she had felt the god's power breathing near. She cried, "Slow are you in your vows and prayers, Trojan Aeneas, are you slow? Be quick, the great mouths of the God's house, thunderstruck, will never open till you pray. Her lips closed tight on this. A chill ran through the bones of the tough Teucrians, but their king poured out entreaties from his deepest heart. O Phobos, God who took pity on the pain of Troy, who guided Paris' hands, his Dardan shaft against the body of Aecides. As you led on, I entered all those sea-washing great lands, and then at the distant tribe of the Massilians at Citer's edge. Now we take hold at last of Italy that slipped away so long. Grant that the fortune of Troy shall have pursued us for fall only, and all you gods and goddesses as well, who took offense at Ilium and our pride at last, rightly you may spare Pergamen's children, most holy prophets, for knowing things to come. I ask no kingdom other than fate allows me. Let our people make this settlement in Latium with all Troy's wandering gods and shaken powers. Then I shall dedicate a temple here to Phoebus and Diana of the crossroads, order in festal days in Phoebus' name. A holy place awaits you in my kingdom, where I shall store your prophecies, your dark revelations to my people, and appoint a chosen priesthood for you, gracious one. But now commit no verses to the leaves, or they may be confused, shuffled, and whirled by plain winds. Chant them aloud, I pray. Then he fell silent by the prophetess, whom the bestriding god had not yet broken, stormed about the cavern, trying to shake his influence from her breast, while all the more he tried her mad jaws, quelled her savage heart, and tamed her by his pleasure. In the end, the cavern's 100 mouth of all of them unclosed to let the Sibyl's answer through. You, sir, now quit at last of the sea's danger, for whom still greater are the store on land. The Dardan race will reach Livinian country, but the anxiety way, but there will wish they had not come. Wars, vicious wars I see ahead, and Tiber foaming blood. Simois, Xanthus, Dorians encamped. You'll have them all again with an Achilles child of Latium, he too goddess born, and nowhere from pursuit of Teucrians will Juno stray, while you go destitute, begging so many tribes and towns for aid. The cause of suffering here again will be a bride foreign to Teucrians, a marriage made with a stranger. Never shrink from blows, boldly, more boldly, where your luck allows. Go forward, face them. A first way to safety will open where you reckon on, at least from a Greek city. These were the sentences in which the Sibyl of Cumae from her shrine sang out her riddles, echoing in the cave, dark saying, muffling truth the way Apollo pulled her up raging, or else whipped her on, digging the spurs beneath her breast, as seen as her fit ceased. Her wild voice quieted the great soldiers. Aeneas began to speak. No novel kings of hardship, no surprises loom ahead, sister. I foresaw them all, went through them in my mind. One thing I pray for, since it is here, they say, one finds the gate of the king of underworld, the shadowy marsh that wells from Acheron. May I have leave to go to my dear father's side and see him teach me the path, show me the entrance way through fires, and with 1,000 spears behind, I brought him on these shoulders, rescued him amid our enemies. He shared my voyage, bore all the seas with me. Hard nights and days of menace from the sea and sky, beyond the strength and lot of age. Frail though he was indeed, he prayed this very prayer. He told me that I should come to you and beg it humbly. Piteous son and father, gracious lady, all this is your power. He cut give you authority to have and hold Avenus would, if Orpheus could call his wife's shade up, rely on the strings that sang loud on the Thracian lyre. If Pollux redeem his brother, taking his turn at death, so often passing back and forth Why name the heroes Thiscus and Hercules? By birth I too descend from Jove on high. While in these terms he prayed and pressed the altar, breaking in the Sibyl said offspring of gods by blood Trojan and Anchi's son. The way downward is easy from Avernus. Black this door stands open night and day, but to retrace your step to heaven's air, there is the trouble, there is the toil. If you whom a benign Jupiter has loved, or whom fiery heroism has borne to heaven, sons of God, and do it all midway for. Forest then cactus, thick and black, winds through the gloom. But if you feel such love and such a desire to cross the Stygian waters, twice to view the night of Tartarus twice. If this mad efforts to your liking, then consider what you must accomplish first. The tree's deep shade conceals a bow whose leaf and pliant twigs are of gold, a thing scared to Juno of the lower world. The whole grove shelters it, and thickest shade in dusky valleys shuts it in, and yet no one may enter hidden depths below the earth unless he picks this bow. The tree's fruit with its foliage of gold. Proserpina decreed this bow as due her, should be given into her own fair hands when torn away. In place of it, a second grows up without fail, a gold as well, flowering with metallic leaves again. So lift your eyes and search, and once you find it, pull away the bow. It will come willingly, easily, if you are called by faith. If not, with all your strength, you cannot conquer it. Cannot lop it off with a sword's edge. A further thing is this: your friend's dead body, but you don't know, lies out there unburied, polluting all your fleet with death. While you are lingering, waiting on my counsel here at my door, first give the man his rest, entombed him. Lead black beasts so sacrifice, begin with these amends, then in due course you'll see the Stygian forest rise before you. Regions are not for the living. She fell silent, closing her lips with a downcast face and eyes. Aeneas turned from the cavern to the shore, dark matters on his mind. Steadfast Achates walked beside him with a deliberate pace and equal anxieties. The two exchanged in shifting conversation many guesses as to the friend now dead, now to be buried. So the prophetess has said. Then suddenly, as they came down to the dry beach, they saw Maecenas robbed of life by early death. Their own Maecenas, the son of Aeolus, never surpassed a rousing fighting man with brazen trumpets setting Mars afire. Once he had been great Hector's adjutant, going forward at Hector's side in battle, brilliant with trumpet and with spear as well. After Achilles took the life of Hector, this giant soldier joined Dardan Aeneas in allegiance to no lesser cause. That day, by chance, as he blew notes on a hollow shell, making the sea sing back in his wild folly, he dared the gods to rival him. Then Triton, envious in this can be believed, caught him and put him under in the surf amid the rocks of shore offshore. All who were there clamored around the body in lament. Aeneas, the good captain, most of all, in haste then, even as they wept, they turned to carry out the orders of Sibyl, racing to pile up logs for the altar prayer, pyre, and build it sky high. Into the virgin forest thicket of wild wings went the men, and down the pitch pines came the bitten ilex rang with axe blows. Ashen oak was split with wedges. Mighty rowans were trundled down the slopes. Aeneas himself went first in all this labor, cheering his fellows on with implements like theirs in hands, but grimly in his heart he wandered, studying the unmeasured forest. All fell to prayer, if only the golden bow might shine for us in such a wilderness, as all the prophetess foretold was true. Micenas, in your case, only too true. The words were barely uttered when two doves in casual flight out of the upper air came down before the men's eyes to alight on the green grass, and the great hero knew the birds to be his mothers. Joyously he prayed, "O be my guides, if they're away, wing on into that wood where the bow, the princess, the priceless bow shadows the futile ground. My divine mother, do not fail your son in a baffling time." Then he stood still to see what signs the doves might give, or where their flight might lead them, and they fled, and then flew on, each time as far as one who came behind could keep in view. Then, when they reached the gorge of sulphurous Ravenous, firstborn upward through the lucent air, they glided down to their desired rest. The two huge trees, where glitter of gold filtered between green boughs like mistletoe, that in the woods in winter thrives with yellowish berries and new leaves. A parasite on the trunk it twines around, so bright amid the dark green ilex shone. The golden leafage rustling in light wind, Aeneas at once briskly took hold of it, and though it clung greedily, broke it off, then carried it to the Sibyl's cave. Meanwhile, the Teucrians on the shore wept for Maecenas, doing for thankless thus the final honors. First, they built up a giant pyre enriched with pitch pine and split oak and somber boughs alongside and dark cypresses in front. On top, they made a blazon of bright arms. One group set water boiling over flames, then washed the gold corpse and anointed it, groaning loud, and laid it out when mourned on a low couch with purple robes thrown over it, a hero's shrouding. Bearers then took up as their sad duty the great bier. With eyes averted in their father's ancient way, they held the torch below. Heaped offerings blazed up and burned, food, incense, oil in bowls, and when the flame died and the coals fell in, they gave a bath of wine to the pyre's remnant. Thirsty ash, then picking out the bones, Cornelius enclosed them in an urn. The same priest with pure water went 3 times around the company, asperging them with cleansing drops from a ripe olive sprig, and spoke the final words faithfully. Then Aeneas heaped a great tomb over the dead, placing his arms, his oar, his trumpet there beneath a promontory named for him, Misenum, now and always, age to age. All this accomplished with no more ado, he carried out the orders of Sibyl. The cavern was profound, wide-mouthed, and huge, rough underfoot, defended by dark pool and gloomy forest overhead. Flying things could never safely take their way. Such deathly exhalations rose from the black gorge. Into the dome of heaven, the priestess here placed 4 black bullocks, wet their brows with wine, plucked bristles from between the horns, and laid them as his first offering on the holy fire, calling aloud a hecate supreme in heaven and Erebus. Others drew knives across beneath and caught warm blood in bowls. Aeneas, by the sword's edge, offered up tonight the mother of the Eumenides and her great sister Earth, a black fleeced lamb, a sterile cow to thee, Proserpina. Then for the Stygian king he lit at light new altars, where he placed over the flames entire carcasses of bulls, and poured rich oil out on blazing viscera. Only see, just at the light's edge, just before sunrise, earth rumbled underfoot, forested ridges broke into movement, and fair howls of dogs were heard across the twilight as the goddess nearer and nearer came. Away, away, the Sibyl cried, all those unblessed away, depart from all the grove, but you, Aeneas, Enter the path here and unsheath your sword. There's need of gall and resolution now. She flung herself wildly into the cave mouth, leading, and he strode boldly at her heels. God who ruled the ghosts, all silent shades and chaos and infernal fiery stream and religions of wild night without a sound, may it be right to tell what I have heard, may it be right and fitting by your will that I describe the deep world sunk in darkness underneath the earth, now dim to one another in desolate night. They walked on through the gloom, through this home's all void and empty realms, as one goes through a wood by a faint moon, treacherous light, when Jupiter veils the sky and black night blots the colors of the world. Before the entrance in the jaws of Orca's grief and avenging cares have made their beds, and pale diseases and sad age are there, and dread and hunger that sways men to crime, and sordid want in shapes to affright the eyes, and death and toil, and death's own brother sleep, and the mind's evil joys on the door sills, death bringing war and iron cubicles of the humanities, and raven discord, viperish hair bound up in gory bands in the courtyard. A shady giant elm spreads ancient bows, her ancient arms with dreams. False dreams, the old hill goes beneath each leaf cling, and are numberless there too about the doorway form of monsters crowd, the centaurs, treeforms, psych, scalas, hundred armed barrier Briareus, and Lernaean Hydra, hissing horribly, and the Chimera, breathing dangerous flames, and Gorgons, harpies. Huge Gaian triple-bodied ghosts. Here, swept by sudden fear, drawing his sword, Aeneas stood on guard with naked edge against them as they came. If his companion, knowing the truth, had not admonished him how fate these lives were empty images hovering bodiless, he had attacked and cut his way through phantom empty air. The path goes on from that place to the waves of Tartarus Acheron, thick with mud. A whirlpool out of a vast abyss boils up and belches all the silt it carries into Coctus. Here the ferryman, a figure of fright, keeper of waters and streams, is Charon, foul and terrible, his beard grown wild and hoar. This staring eyes all flame, his sordid cloak hung from his shoulder. Not alone he pulls his craft and trims the sails, and in his rusty hull ferries the dead. Old now, but old age in the gods is green. Here a whole crowd came streaming to the banks, mother and men, the form with all life spent of heroes great in valor, boys and girls, unmarried and young sons, laid on the pyre before their parents' eyes, as many souls as leaves this yield their hold on bows and fall through forest in the early frost of autumn, or as migrating birds from the open sea that darken heaven when the cold season comes and drives them overseas to slit lands. There all stood begging to be first across and reach out longing hands to the fair shore. But the grim boatmen now took these abroad, now those, waving the rest back from the strand. He wondered at this, and, touched by the commotion, Aeneas said, "Tell me, sister, what this means. The crowd of the screams, where are the souls bound? How are they tested, so that these turn back, while those take oars to cross the dead black water?" Briefly, the ancient priestess answered him, Cocytus is the deep pool that you see, the swamp of Styx beyond infernal power by which the gods, like oath and fear, to break it all. In the nearby crowd you notice here are pauper souls, the souls of the unburied, charons, the boatmen, those the water bears, the souls of buried men. He may not take them shore to dread shore on the host currents there until their bones rest in the grave or till they flutter and roam the side 100 years. They may have passage then and may return to cross the deeps they long for. Anchi's son had halted pondering on so much and stood in pity for the soul's hard lot. Among them he saw two sad ones of unhonored death, Leucaspis and Lucrian fleet's commander Orestes, who had sailed the windy sea from Troy together till the southern gale had swarmed and whirled them down, both ship and men. Of a sudden he saw the helmsman Palinurus going by, who but a few nights before, on course from Libya, as he watched the stars, had been pitched overboard astern. As soon as he made sure of the disconsolate one, in all the gloom Aeneas called, which God took you away from us and put you under. Palinurus, tell me. In this one prophecy, Apollo, who had never played me false, falsely foretold you'd be unharmed at sea and would arrive at the Ausonian coast. Is the promise kept? But the shade said, Phoebus' cauldron told you no lie. My captain and no god drowned me at sea. The helm that I hung on to, duty bound to keep our ship on course, by some great shock chanced to be torn away, and I went with it overboard. I swear the rough seas I feared less for myself than for your ship. Would rudder gone and steersman knocked overboard, it might well come to grief in a big seas running 3 night heavy weather out of the south on the vast water tossed me. On the fourth dawn I sighted Italy dimly ahead as a wave crest lifted me. By turns I swam and rested, swam again, and got my footing on on the beach. But savages attacked me as I clutched at my cliff top, weighted down by my wet clothes. Poor fools, they took me for a prize and ran me through. Surf has me now, and sea winds washing me close inshore. By heaven's happy light, the sweet air, I beg you, by your father and by your hopes of Iola's rising star, deliver me from this captivity, unconquered friend. Through earth on me you can put in to Valia port, or if there be some way to do it, if your goddess mother shows the way, and I feel sure you pass these streams and Stygian marsh. By heaven's will, give this poor soul your hand, take me across, let me at least in death find quiet haven. When he had made his plea, the Sibyl said, From what source comes this craving, Palinurus? Would you, though still unburied, see the Styx and the grim river of the Eumenides, or even the river bank without a summons? Abandon hope by prayer to make the gods change their decree. Hold fast to what I say to comfort your hard lot. Neighboring folk in cities up and down the coast will be induced by portents to appease your bones, building a tomb and making offerings there on a cape forward named for Palinurus. The Sibyls were relieved him, and the pain was for a while dispelled from his sad heart. Pleased at the place name, so the two walked on down to the stream. Now from the Stygian water the boatmen, seeing them in the silent wood and headed for the bulk, cried out to them, a rough uncalled for challenge, Who are you? In armor visiting our rivers, speak from where you are. Stop there, say why you come. This is the region of the shades and sleep and drowsy night. It breaks eternal law for the Stygian craft to carry living bodies. Never did I rejoice, I tell you, letting Alcides cross or Theseus and Pirithous, demigods by paternity, though they were invincible in power, one forced in chains from the king's own seat the watchdog of the dead and dragged him away trembling. The other two were bent on carrying Our Lady of from this chamber. This the prophetess and servant of Arphasian Apollo briefly answered, "Here are no such plots. So fret no more. These weapons threaten nothing. Let the great watchdog at the door howl on forever, terrifying the bloodless shades that chase Proserpina remained at home in her uncle's house. The man of Troy, Aeneas remarkable, the loyalty great in armies, goes through the deepest shade of Erebus to see his father. If the very image of so much goodness moves you at all, here is a bow." At this she showed the bow that had been hidden, held beneath her dress. "You'll recognize it then." His heart, puffed up with rage, subsided. They had no more words. His eyes fixed on the ancient gift, the bow, destined gift, so long unseen, now seen. He turned his dusky craft and made for shore. There, from the long thwarts where they sat, he cleared the other souls and made the gangway wide, letting the massive man step in the bilge. The leaky coral groaned at the weight and took a flood of swampy water in at length. On the other side, he put ashore the prophetess and hero in the mere, a formless ooze amid the gray green siege. Great Cerberus, barking with the triple throat, make all the shoreline ring as he lies huge in a facing cave, seeing his neck begin to come alive with snakes. The prophetess tossed him a lump of honey and drugged meal to make him drowsy. Three ravenous gullet gapes, and he snapped up the soap. Then his great bulk subsided and lay down through all the cave. Now seeing the watchdog deep in sleep, Aeneas took the opening swiftly. He turned away from the river over which no soul returns. Now voices crying loud were heard at once, the soul of infants wailing at the door of the sweet life they were to have no part in. Tom from the breast a black day took them off and drowned them all in bitter death. Near were souls falsely accused, condemned to die, but not without a judge or jurymen. Had these souls got their places, minors reigned by the presiding judge, moving the urn, and called a jury of the silent ones to learn of lives and accusations. Next were those sad souls benighted who contrived their own destruction, and as they hated daylight, cast their lives away. How they would wish in the upper air now to endure the pain of poverty and toil, but iron law stands in the way, since the drear, hateful swamp has pinned them down here, and the stench stikes that wind 9 times around exerts imprisoning power not far away, spreading on every side. The fields of mourning came in view, so called, since here are those whom pitiless love consumed with cruel wasting, hidden on paths apart by myrtle woodland growing overhead in death itself. Pain will not let them be. He saw here Phaedra, Procris, Eryphile, sadly showing the wound her had son gave, Evadne and Pasiphae, at whose side Laodamia walked, and Caeneus, a young man once a woman now, and turned again by fate into the older form among them with her fatal wound still fresh. Phaeacian Dido wandered the deep wood, The Trojan captain paused nearby, and you heard dim from form in the dark as one who sees early in the month or thinks to have seen the moon rising through cloud all dim. He wept and spoke tenderly to her, Dido, so forlorn. The story then that came to me was true, that you were out of life here, met by your end, by your own hand. Was I the cause? I swear by heaven's stars, by the high gods, by any certainty, below the earth. I left your land against my will, my queen. The gods' command drove me to do their will, as now they drive me through this world of shades, these moldy wasteland, and these depths of night, as I could not believe that I would hurt you so terribly by going. Wait a little, do not leave my sight, and I am someone to flee from. The last word destiny lets me say to you is this. Aeneas, with such pleas, tried to placate the burning soul, savagely glaring back, and tears came to his eyes, but she had turned with gaze fixed on the ground as he spoke on, her face no more affected than if she were immobile granite on a Marpessian stone. At length she flew away from him and fled, his enemy still, into the shadowy grove where he whose bride she once had been. Sateus joined in her sorrows and returned her love. Aeneas still gazed after her in tears, shaken by her ill fate and pitying her. With effort then he took the given way, and they went on, reaching the farthest lands where men famous in war gather path. Here Tydeus came to meet him, and then came Parthenopeus, glorious in arms, Adrastus, then a pallid shade. Here too were Dardans long bewept in the upper air, men who died in the Great War, and he groaned to pick these figures out in a long file. Glaucus, Medon, Thessalocus, besides Antenor's three sons, then the priest in Ceres, Polybotus, then Idias, holding still on his war car, holding his own old gear. To right and left they crowd the path and stay, and will not have enough of seeing him, but love to hold him back, to walk beside him and hear the story of why he came not. So Agamemnon, Phalanx, chief of the Danans, seeing the living man in bronze that glowed through the dark air, they shrank in fear. Some turned and ran as once when routed to the ships, while others raised a battle shout or tried to mouth a cape, mocked by the whispering cry. Here next he saw Deiphobus, Priam's son, mutilated from head to foot, his face and both hands cruelly torn, hair shorn away, nose to the nose holes lopped by a shameful stroke, barely knowing the shade who quailed before him, covering up his tortured face. Aeneas spoke out to him in his known voice. Deiphobus, gallant officer in high Teucer's line, who chose this brutal punishment, who had so much the upper hand of you. I heard on that last night that you had fallen, spent after a slaughter of Pelagians, fallen on piles up carnage. It was I who built on Rhoeteum Point an empty tomb and sent a high call to your soul 3 times. Your name, your armor marks the place. I could not find you, friend, to put your bones in earth in the old country as I came away. And Priam's son replied, you left undone nothing, my friend, but gave all ritual due, Deiphobus due, a dead man's shade. My lot and my Laconian woman's ghastly doing sank me in this well. These are the marks she left on me as her memorial. You know How between one false gladness and another we spent that last night. No need to remind you. When the tall, deadly horse came at one bound, with the troops crammed in its paunch above our towns, she made a show of choral dance and led the Phrygian woman crying out on Bacchus, here, there, but held a torch amid them, signaling to Danans from the height. Worn by the long day, heavily asleep, I lay in my unlucky bridal chamber, and rest profound and sweet, most like the rest of death, weighed on me as I lay. Meanwhile, she, my distinguished wife, moved all my arms out of the house, as she had slipped my sword, my faithful sword, out from beneath my pillow, opened the door, and called in Menelaus, hoping no doubt by this great gift to him, her lover, to blot old infamy out. Why hold back from telling it? The two burst in the bedroom, joined by the ringleader of atrocity, Ulysses of the Wine King's line. O gods, if with pure lips I pray, requite the Greeks with equal suffering, but you now tell me, what is the world, what in the world has brought you here alive? Have you come from your sea wandering, and did heaven direct you? How could harrying fortune send you to these sad, sunless homes, disordered places? At this point in their talk, Aurora, borne through high air on her glowing rosy car, had crossed the meridian. Should they linger now with stories, they might spend she allotted time, but at Aeneas' side the Sibyl spoke, warning him briefly. Night comes on Aeneas. We use up hours grieving. Here is the place where the road forks. On the right hand it goes, but mighty dis walls, past mighty dis walls, Elysium way, our way, but the leftward road will punish malefactors taking them to Tartarus. Deiphobus answered her, no need for anger, Reverend Lady. I'll depart and make the tally in the darkness full again. Go on, sir, glory of us all. Go on, enter a better destiny. He spoke, and even as he spoke, he turned away. Now of a sudden, Aeneas looked and saw to the left, under a cliff, wild building girt by a triple wall, round which a torrent rush with scorching flames and boulders tossed in thunder, the abyss, fiery river, a massive gate with adamantine pillars faced the stream, so strong no force of men or god in war may ever avail to crack and bring it down. And high in air an iron tower stands, on which Tisiphone, her bloody robe pulled up about her, has her seat and keeps on sleeping watch over the entrance by day or and night. From the interior groans are heard, and a thud of lashes, clanking iron, dragging chains arrested in his tracks. Appalled by what he heard, Aeneas stood. And are the forms of evil here, O sister, tell me, and the punishment dealt out? Why such a lamentation? Said the Sibyl, light of the Teucrians. It is decreed that no pure soul may cross the still of evil. When, however, Hecate appointed me caretaker of Avenus wood, she led me through heaven's punishment and taught me all this realm is under Cretan Ramdamathus iron rule. He sentences, he listens, and makes the soul confess their crooked ways, how they put off atonements in the world with foolish satisfaction, thieves of time until too late, until the hour of death. At once the avenger, girded with her whip, Tisiphone leaps down to lash the guilty. Vile writhen snakes held out on her left hand, and calls her savage sisterhood. The awaited time has come. Hell gates will shudder wide on shrieking hinges. Can you see her now? Her shape a doorkeeper, until upon the sill, more bestial, just inside the giant hydra lurks, and 50 blacks and yawning throats. Then Tartarus itself going plunging down in darkness twice as deep as heaven is high for eyes fixed on ethereal Olympus, here is Earth's ancient race, the brood of titans, hurled by the lightning down to roll forever in the abyss. Here too I saw those giant twins of Aloeus who laid their hands upon great heaven to rend it and to topple Jove from his high seat, and I saw too Salmonius paying dearly for the jape of mimicking Jove's fire, Olympus thunder shaking a bright torch from a four-horse car. He rode through Greece and his hometown in Elis, glorying, calming honor as a god out of his mind, to feign his horse's hoofs on bronze, the blast and imitable and inimitable bolt. The Father Almighty amid a heaven cloud let fly his missile, no firebrand for him, nor smoky pitchbone light, and spun the man headlong in a huge bouldering. One had sight of Titius, two child of all mothering earth, his body stretched out over 9 whole acres, while an enormous vulture with hooked an enormous vulture with hooked beak forages forever in his liver, his vitals rife with agonies. The bird lodged in the chest cavity tears at his feast, and tissues growing again get no relief. As for the lappets, need I tell? Ioxion, Parathons, and the black crag overhead, so sure to fall it seems already fallen. Golden legs gleam on the festers' couches. Dishes in royal luxury prepared are laid before them, but the oldest fury crouches near and springs out with her outcry if they try to touch the meal. Here come those who, as long as life remained, held brothers hateful, beat their parents, cheated poor men dependent on them, also those who hugged their newfound riches to themselves and put nothing aside for relatives. A great crowd this, then men killed for adultery, men who took arms in war against the right, not scrupling to betray their lords. All these are hemmed in here, await punishment, but not inquire what punishment, what form of suffering at their least end overwhelms them. Some heave at a great boulder to or revolve, spread eagle hung on wheel spokes. Theius cleaves to his chair and cleaves to it forever. Phlegias in his misery teaches all souls his lesson, thundering out amid the gloom. He warned and study justice not to scorn. This immortal gods. Here's one who sold his country, foisted a tyrant on her, set up laws or nullified them for a price. Another entered his daughter's room to take a bride forbidden him. All these dared monstrous wrongs and took what they dared for try for. If I had 100 tongues, 100 mouths, a voice of iron, I could not tell all of the shapes their crimes had taken on, or their punishments. All this he heard from her who for long years had served Apollo. Then she said, "Come now, be on your way and carry out your mission. Let us go faster. I can see the walls. The Cyclops forges built and facing us. The portico and gate where they command us to leave the gifts required. On this the two in haste strode on abreast down the dark paths over the space between and near the doors. Aeneas gained the entrance, halted there, asperged his body and fresh water drops, and on the sills before them fixed the bow. Now that at last this ritual was performed, his duty to the goddess done, they came to places of delight, to green parkland, where souls take case amid the blessed groves, wider expanses of high air endow each vista with a wealth of light. Souls here possess their own familiar sun and stars. Some trained on grassy rings, others compete in field games, others grapple on the sand, feet moving to the rhythmic beat. The dancers group in choral patterns as they sing. Orpheus, the priest of Thrace, in his long robe accompanies, plucking his seven notes, now with his fingers, now with his ivory quill. Here is the ancient dynasty of Tusser, heroes high of heart, beautiful Sions, born in greater city, Ilus Assaracus and Dardanus, who founded Troy. Aeneas marvels to see their chariots and gear far off, all phantom lances fixed in earth, and teams unyoked at graze on the wide plain. All joy they took alive in cars and weapons, as in the care and pasturing of horses remained with them when they were laid in earth. He saw how vividly along the grass to right and left others who feasted there, and caroused out a hymn praising Apollo within a fragrant laurel grove, where Poe sprang up and took his course to the world above, the broad stream flowing on amid the forest. This was the company of those who suffered wounds in battle for their country, those who in their lives were holy men and chaste or worthy of Phoebus in prophetic song, or whose or those who bettered life by finding out new thrusts and skills, or those who, to some folk, by benefactions, made themselves remembered. They all wore snowy chaplets on their bows. To these souls mingling on all sides, the Sibyl spoke now, and especially to Marsyas, the central figure towards whose towering shoulders all of the crowds gaze. Tell us, happy souls, and you, great seer, what region holds Anchises? Where is his resting place? For him we came by ferry across the rivers of Erebus. And the great soul answered briefly, none of us has one fixed home. We walk in shady groves and bed our rivers with and occupy green meadows, fresh and streams. But if your hearts are set on it, first cross this ridge, and soon I shall point out an easy path. So saying, he walked ahead and showed them from the height the sweep of shining plain. Then down they went and left the hillocks. Now Aeneas's father, Anchises, deep in the lush green of a valley, had given all his mind to a survey of souls, till then confined there, who were bound for light in the upper world by chance. His own were those he scanned now, all his own descendants, with their futures and their fates, their characters and acts. But when he saw Aeneas advancing towards on the grass, he stretched out both his hands in eagerness. As tears wetted his cheeks, he said in welcome, have you at last has come that loyalty your father counted on conquered the journey? Am I to see your face, my son, and hear our voice in companion as before? I thought so surely, counting the months. I thought the time would come. My longing has not tricked me. I greet you now. How many lands behind you? How many seas? What blows and dangers soon? How much I fear the land of Libya might do you harm. Aeneas said, your ghost, your sad ghost father, often before my mind impelled me to the threshold of this place, my ship's ride anchored in the Tuscan sea. But let me have your hand, let me embrace you. Do not draw back at this. His tears brimmed over and down his cheeks, and there he tried 3 times to throw his arms around his father's neck. 3 times the shade untouched slipped through his hands. Weightless as wind and fugitive as dream, Aeneas now saw at the valley's end a grove standing apart, with stems and boughs of woodland rustling, and the stream of Lethe running past those peaceful glades around it. Souls of 1,000 nations filled the air as bees in meadows at the height of summer hover and home on flowers and thickly swarm on snow white lilies, and the countryside is loud with humming at the sudden vision. Shivering at a loss, Aeneas asked what river flowed there and what men were those in such a throng along the riverside. His father and she told him. A second body is in store. Their drink is water of Lethe, and it frees from care in long forgetfulness. For all this time, I have so much desire to show you these and tell you of them face to face, to take the roster of my children's children here, so you may feel with me more happiness and find Italy. We must imagine, Father, there are souls that go from here aloft to upper heaven and once more return to bodies dead weight. This poor soul, how can they crave our delight so, my son? I tell you not to leave your mystified, and she said, and took each point in order. First, then, the sky and land and sheet of water, the bright moon's globe, the Titan sun and stars are fled within the spirit, and a mind infused through all the members of the world makes one great living before living body of the mass. From spirit come the races of man and beast, the life of birds, odd creatures the deep sea contains beneath her sparkling surfaces, and fiery energy from a heavenly source belongs to the generative seeds of these, so far as they are not poisoned or clogged by mortal bodies. Their free essence dimmed by earthiness and deadliness of flesh, this makes them fear and grave, rejoice and grieve. Imprisoned in the darkness of the body, they cannot clearly see heaven's air. In fact, even when life departs on the last day, not all the scourges of the body pass from the poor souls, not all distress of life, inevitably many malformations growing together in mysterious ways become invertebrate. Therefore, they undergo the discipline of punishment and pay in penance for old sins. Some hang full length to the empty winds, for some the stain of wrong is washed by floods or burned away by fire. We suffer each his own shade. We are sent through wide Elysium, where if few abide in happy lands till the long day, the round of time fulfilled, has worn our strains away, leaving the soul's heaven sent perception clear, the fire from heaven pure. These other souls, when they have turned time's wheel 1,000 years, the God calls crowd to Lethe streamed, that their on memories they may see again the heavens and wish re-entry into bodies, and she's poured He drew both son and Sibyl into the middle of the murmuring throng, then picked out a green mound from which to view the souls as they come forward one by one, and to take notes of faces. Come, he said, what glories follow Dardan generation in after years, and from Italian blood, what famous children in your line will come, souls of the future, living in our name. I shall tell clearly now, and in the telling, teach you my destiny. That one you see, the young man leaning on a spear and arm, his has his allotted place nearest the light. He will be first to take the upper air. Silvius, a child with half Italian blood and an Alban name, your last born, whom your wife Lavinia, late in your great age, will rear in forest to be king and father of kings. Through him our race will rule in Alba Longa, next him in Procas, pride of the Trojan line, and Capys too, then Numitor, then one whose name restores you, Silvius Aeneas, both in arms and piety your peer, in ever if ever he shall come to reign in Alba, what men they are, and see their rugged forums with oak leaf crown shadowing their brows, I tell you, these are to found Nomentum Gabai, Fidanate town, Calatia, Hilltop, Towers, Prometai, Fort Enos, Bola, Cora, names to be heard for places nameless now. Then Romulus, fathered by Mars, will come to make himself his grandfather's companion. Romulus, reared by his mother Ilia, in the first line, in the bloodline of Assaracus. Romulus, reared by his mother Ilia in the bloodline of Assaracus. Do you see the double plumb of Mars fixed on his crest? See how the father of the gods himself now marks him out with his own sign of honor. Look now, my son, under his auspices. Illustrious Rome will bound her power with earth, her spirit with Olympus. She'll enclose her seven hills with one great city wall, fortunate in the men she breeds. Just so, Sibyl's mother, honored on Berestinthus, wearing her crown of towers, onward rides by chariot through the town of Phrygia, in joy at having given birth to gods and cherishing 100 grandsons, heaven dwellers with whom on high. Turn your two eyes this way and see this people, your own Romans. Here is Caesar and all the line of Iulus, all who shall one day pass under the dome of the great sky. This is the man, this one of whom so often you have heard the promise, Caesar Augustus, son of the deified, who shall bring once again an age of gold to to the land where Saturn reigned. In early times, he will extend his power beyond the Garamans and India over far territories north and south of the zodiacal stars, the solar way, where Atlas, heaven bearing on his shoulder, turns the night space studded with burning stars. At that man's coming, even now the realms of Caspia and Meotia tremble, warned by oracle, and the seven mouths of Nile go dark and fair. The truth is, even Alcides never traversed so much of earth. I grant that he could shoot The hind with brazen hoofs off bring peace to the groves of Eranmanthus, or leave Lerna affrighted by his bow. Neither did he who guided his triumphal car with reins of vine shoots twisted Bacchus driving down from Nisa's height his tiger team. Do we lag still at carrying our valor into action? Can our fear prevent our settling in Ausonia? Who is he, so set apart there, olive crowned, who holds the sacred vessel in his hands? I know that snowy mane and beard, Numa the king, who will build early Rome on a base of laws, a man sent from the small town poverty of cures to high sovereignty. After him comes Tullus, breaker of his country's peace, arousing men who have laws victorious ways, malingering men to war. Near him in Aeneas, given to boasting, even now to please with varying popularity, heady air. Do you care to see now too the Tarquin kings and the proud soul of the avenger Brutus, who by whom the bundle faces are regained? Consular power will first be his, and his pitiless axes when his own two sons plot war against the city he will call. For the death penalty in freedom's nature, unhappy men, no matter how posterity may see these matters, love of the fatherland will sway him, an unmeasured lust for fame. Now see the Delcy and the Dursey there, and stern Tacotus and his axe, and see Camillus bringing the lost standards home. That pair, however, matched in brilliant armor, matched in their heart's desire now, while night still holds them fast. Once they attain life's light, what war, what grief will they provoke between them? Battle lines and bloodshed as the father marches from the Alpine ramparts down from Monaco's wall height, and the son-in-law draws up the armies of the east awaits him. Sons, refrain, you must not blind your hearts to that enormity of civil war turning against your country's very heart, her own vigor of manhood. You, above all, who trace your line from the immortals, you be first to spare us, child of my own blood. Throw away your sword. Mummius there, when Corinth is brought low, will drive his car as victor and as killer of Achaeans to our high capital. Paulus will conquer Argos and Agamemnon's old Mycenae, defeating Perseus the Aesir, heir to the master of war Achilles, thus avenging his own Trojan ancestors and the defilement of Minerva's shrine. Great Cato, who would leave you unremarked or cuss you, or the family of Gracchi, or the twin Scipios, bright bolts of war, the bane of Libya, or you, Fabricius, the poverty yet powerful, in poverty yet powerful, or you, Cyrannus, at the furrow casting seed, where though I weary, do you hurry me, you, Phoebus Maximus. In grandfather, the grand. You are the only soul who shall restore our wounded state by waiting out the enemy. Others will cast more tenderly in bronze their breathing figures, I can well believe, and bring more lifelike portraits out of marble, argue more eloquently, use the pointer to trace the paths of heaven accurately, and accurately foretell the rising star. Roman reminder by your strength to rule earth's peoples, for your arts are to be these: to pacify, to impose the rule of law, to spare the conquered, battle down the proud. And she's paused here as they gazed in awe, then added, see there how Marcellus comes with spoils of the commander that he killed, how the man towers over everyone. Cavalry leader, he'll sustain the realm of Rome in hours of tumult, bringing to heal the Carthaginians and rebellious Gaul, and for the third time in our history, he'll dedicate the enemies enemy general's arm to Father Romulus. But here Aeneas broke in, seeing at Marcella's side a young man beautifully formed and tall in shining armor, but with clouded brow and downcast eyes. And who is that one, father, walking beside the captain as he comes, as a son or grandchild from the same great stock? The others murmured, all austere, how strong his presence is, but night, like a black cloud about his head, whirls down in awe, gloom. His father and she's answered, and the tears welled up as he began. Oh, do not ask about this huge grief of your people, son, fate. You give earth only a glimpse of him, not let the boy live on. Lords of the sky, you thought the majesty of Rome too great if it had kept these gifts. How many groans will be sent up from the great field of Mars to Mars' proud city, and what said rites you'll see, Tiber, as you flow past the new built tomb. Never will any boy of Ilian race exalt his Latin forefathers with promise equal to his. Never will Romulus' land take pride like this in any of her sons. Weep for his faithful heart, his old world honor, his sword arm never beaten down. No enemy could have come through a crash with him unhurt, whether this soldier went on foot or rode, digging his spurs into a lathered mount. Child of morning, if only in some way you could break through your bitter fate, for you will be merciless. Let me scatter lilies, all I can hold, and scarlet flowers as well, to heap these from my grandson's shade at least. Frail gifts and ritual of no avail. So rapidly everywhere father and son wandered the airy plain and viewed it all. After Anchises had conducted him to every reign and had fired his love of glory in the years to come, he spoke of wars that he must fight, of Laurentines and of Latinus city, then of how he might avoid or bear each toil to come. There are two gates of sleep, one said to be of horn, whereby the true shades pass with ease, the other all white ivory, agleam, without a flaw, and yet false dreams are sent. Through this one by the ghost of the upper world, and she's now his last instructions given, took son and Sibyl there, and let them go by the ivory gate. Aeneas made his way straight to the ships to see his crews again, then sailed directly to Caieta's port. Bow anchors out, the stern rest on the beach.